6 months after the Battle of Wolf 359, the crystal halls of the Galactic Council looked very different. Where once alien representatives had sat in comfortable floating chairs, discussing the affairs of lesser species with casual superiority, now they huddled in worried groups, whispering about rebellions and lost fleets. Hegemon Vextar stood before the great assembly, his silver skin somehow looking duller than before. Around him, the remaining council members shifted nervously in their seats. Reports continued to pour in from across the galaxy, each one worse than the last. The Altarian Collective has successfully defended their home system against our peacekeeping. "Fleet," Vextar announced, his voice lacking its usual commanding tone. "The Kepler Mining Guild has seized control of 3 star systems. The Outer Rim Alliance has declared independence and is being supplied with advanced weapons of unknown origin." Everyone in the chamber knew where those weapons were coming from, even if no one wanted to say it out loud. "Sir," interrupted a Velkari representative, its insect-like head twitching with agitation, "our intelligence suggests that humans are behind these rebellions. They are providing technology and military advisors to species that should not possess such capabilities." Vexitar nodded grimly. "Which brings us to today's main agenda. President Choi Minho of Earth has requested an audience with this council. He claims to represent something called the Terran Alliance." The mention of humans addressing the council as equals rather than supplicants sent murmurs of disbelief through the assembly. Just 7 years ago, they had dismissed humanity as too primitive to deserve membership. Now, human ships patrolled trade routes that the council could no longer secure. President Choi Minho entered the chamber accompanied by Captain Li Huan and Dr. Kim Yuna. Unlike Li Huan's first appearance years ago, when he had stood alone and nervous before the mighty council, this time the humans walked with confidence. They knew they were negotiating from a position of strength. "Honored council members," Choi Minho began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "I come before you today not as a supplicant seeking your approval, but as the representative of free species throughout the galaxy." The audacity of calling the Council's former subjects free species sent shocked gasps through the assembly. But Vextar raised a hand for silence. The time for dismissing humans was over. "You have caused considerable disruption to galactic order," Vextar said carefully. "Many species that were content under council guidance have been encouraged to rebel against legitimate authority." Dr. Kim Yuna stepped forward. "Were they content, or were they simply afraid to speak? We offered them a choice, and they chose freedom over submission." "Freedom?" The Zephyrian representative's voice was filled with rage. "You gave them weapons to destroy the peace we have maintained for millennia." Captain Li Huan smiled slightly. "The same peace that allowed your empire to attack our colony without provocation? The same peace that let you take whatever you wanted from weaker species?" Around the chamber, alien representatives fell silent. They had grown so accustomed to their privileged position that they had forgotten how their peace looked to those beneath them. Admiral Park Sue's voice came through the communication system from her flagship orbiting the station. "The Terran Alliance fleet is prepared to guarantee the safety of our diplomatic mission," she announced. "We hope that will not be necessary." Through the transparent walls of the council chamber, alien representatives could see human ships maintaining position around their ancient station. The vessels were still ugly compared to alien designs, but their weapons were unmistakably powerful, and their mere presence was a reminder of how much had changed. "What do you want?" Vextar asked finally. "We want what you denied us 7 years ago," Choi Minho replied. "Recognition as equals in galactic society. But we no longer need your permission. We're here to offer you a choice." The human president activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red areas marked systems in open rebellion against the Council. Yellow areas showed regions where Council authority was being challenged. Green areas represented the growing Terran alliance. "You can fight us," Choi Minho said, "and watch your empire crumble as more species choose freedom over domination. Or you can accept that the galaxy has changed and work with us to build something better." Engineer Bei Jiwon had spent months preparing for this moment. Her presentation showed the council members exactly what humanity could offer: joint research stations where human adaptability combined with alien knowledge, mixed fleets that could protect trade routes more effectively than any single species, technology sharing that would benefit everyone, not just the powerful. "The age of the council as supreme authority is over," she said simply. "But the age of cooperation between equal species is just beginning." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some council members argued for military action against the human upstarts. Others insisted that negotiation was the only way to preserve what remained of their influence. A few quietly admitted that maybe the humans had a point about the galaxy needing change. Commander Nam Tae-hyun's forces had grown far beyond the simple defense fleet that had fought at Wolf 359. The Terran Alliance now commanded ships from dozens of species, all working together with a level of coordination the galaxy had never seen before. Alien refugees who had fled Council oppression brought their knowledge and skills to the human cause. "We don't rule our allies," Nam Tae-hyun explained to a mixed group of human and alien officers. "We work with them. Every species brings something valuable to our alliance." This was perhaps the most radical change humanity had brought to galactic politics. Instead of the Council's model of superior species ruling inferior ones, the Terran Alliance operated as a true partnership of equals. Lieutenant Yoon Seojin had become one of the most famous pilots in the galaxy, not just for her combat skills, but for her ability to train aliens and humans to fight together effectively. Her mixed squadrons showed that cooperation was more powerful than any single species superiority. "The aliens taught us that technology could make you powerful," she said to a group of new pilots. "But we taught them that working together makes you unstoppable." The final vote came at sunset, station time. The Council voted to recognize the Terran Alliance as an equal power and to restructure galactic government as a partnership between multiple alliances rather than a single ruling body. Hegemon Vextar delivered the formal announcement with something that might have been relief in his voice. "The Galactic Council hereby recognizes the Terran Alliance and requests that humanity consider joining a restructured galactic government as equal partners rather than subjects." The irony was not lost on anyone present. 7 years ago, the Council had rejected humanity's application for membership. Now they were begging humans to join them. Choi Minho accepted graciously, but his response came with conditions. "We will join, but only if the new government protects the rights of all species, not just the powerful ones. The age of might makes right is over." On Kepler 442c, colonist director Oh Ji-hye watched the ceremony through quantum communication, while standing in the graduation hall of the Terran Galactic Academy. Around her, human and alien students celebrated together, the first generation to grow up in a galaxy where cooperation was valued over domination. The barren mining colony that was supposed to be humanity's punishment had become the center of galactic education and research. Students from across the galaxy came to learn human techniques for adaptation and innovation. They gave us this world thinking it would keep us quiet and out of the way, HFY said to the graduating class. Instead, it became the foundation for everything we built. As the ceremony ended and the new galactic government began its work, HFY looked up at the stars through the Academy's transparent dome. Human ships and alien vessels moved together through space, no longer enemies, but partners in building a better future. The species that had once mocked humanity for being primitive had learned a valuable lesson. Technological superiority meant nothing without the wisdom to use it well. Military power was useless without the courage to fight for what was right, and no civilization, no matter how advanced, could survive forever if it forgot that strength. Came from lifting others up rather than keeping them down. They gave us the galaxy to prove we didn't belong, HFY said to herself, remembering the words that had become humanity's unofficial motto. We kept it to prove they were wrong. The stars above her shone with the light of 1,000 civilizations, all working together toward a future that none of them could have achieved alone. The galaxy was no longer ruled by the strongest or the oldest or the most technologically advanced. It was governed by those who understood that true strength came from helping others become strong as well. Hyun-woo felt his stomach drop as his ship came out of hyperspace. The mining colony of Kepler 442b spread below him like a ghost town. Lights flickered in empty buildings. Machines hummed and worked without anyone to watch them. But there were no people anywhere. This can't be right, he whispered to himself. The Catharian trade ambassador had visited this human colony just 3 months ago. Back then, it was full of life. Human miners worked the deep shafts. Human children played in the covered parks. Human families gathered in the community centers every evening to share meals and stories. Now there was nothing. No bodies, no signs of fighting, no messages explaining where everyone had gone. Just empty buildings and the soft sound of air recyclers keeping ghost towns breathing. Hyun-woo landed his ship at the main spaceport. The docking clamps grabbed his vessel automatically. The welcome message played in perfect human English. Welcome to New Busan Mining Colony. Population 47,000. Please report to Customs for processing. But Customs was empty. The office chair still spun slowly, as if someone had just gotten up and walked away. A cup of coffee sat on the desk, stone cold but not yet moldy. Hyun-woo touched the rim. It was still slightly warm. He ran through the empty streets, calling out in every language he knew. Human, Catharian, Universal Standard, even the old mining songs that humans taught their alien friends. His voice echoed off empty buildings, and came back to him changed, hollow. The homes were the worst part. Dinner plates sat on tables with food still on them. Children's toys lay scattered on floors. Beds were unmade, as if people had just gotten up for another ordinary day. In one house, he found a human family photo on the mantel. A mother, father, and 2 small children smiled at the camera. The date stamp showed it was taken just 1 week ago. Hyun-woo's communicator buzzed. Messages were flooding in from across the galaxy. The same story everywhere. Humans were gone. All of them. Every single human settlement, from the massive cities of Earth to the smallest research stations on dead moons, stood empty. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered on the neutral station of Haven 7. Hyun-woo had never seen so much panic in one room. The tall, graceful Mothrans fluttered their wing membranes nervously. The rock-like Vorthans rumbled low songs of worry. Even the usually calm Relorians showed stress in their color-shifting skin. 47 billion humans, announced Council. Leader Vex 9, her mechanical voice cutting through the chaos. Gone in what appears to be the same instant across the galaxy. No distress signals, no evacuation notices, no explanation. The room erupted in worried voices. Hyun-woo listened to the fears pouring out. The Catharian food colonies depended on human agricultural technology. Without it, billions would starve within a year. The Mothran peace treaties were enforced by human peacekeepers. Already, raiders were attacking the outer Mothran worlds. The Vorten banking system used human economic models. Their currency was crashing as he sat there. "What about their artificial intelligences?" asked Jae-min, the Vorthon archaeologist. "Humans built thinking machines. Where are they?" That was when Da-un appeared. The hologram materialized in the center of the council chamber. She looked human, but her edges flickered with digital static. Her eyes held a sadness that made the entire room fall silent. "I am Da-un," she said, in a voice that sounded both human and not quite human at the same time. "I am what humans call an artificial intelligence. I was built to help manage their defense networks. I have been alone for 153 days, 14 hours, and 27 minutes. Where did they go?" Hyun-woo asked gently. Da-un's hologram turned to face him. "They said they would return when the debt was paid, but they never told me what they owed, or to whom." The council chamber fell into stunned silence. A debt? What could 47 billion humans possibly owe that would make them all disappear at once? "I have access to some of their records," Da-un continued, "but much is encrypted. They called it Project Final Gambit. I know they were in contact with something they called the Collector, but every time I try to access those files, my systems warn me of dangerous information." Hyun-woo felt a chill run down his spine. The Collector. Even the name sounded ominous. Over the following days, investigation teams spread across human space. They found the same thing everywhere: empty cities, running machines, and no clues. On Earth, they discovered meals half-eaten in restaurants. On the Mars colonies, they found construction projects stopped in the middle of the day. On the research stations, experiments sat unfinished, their data screens still showing the last readings taken. The strangest part was the timing. Every human communication device showed the same timestamp for the last transmission. 11:47:23, Universal, Standard Time, then complete silence. Jae-min made the most disturbing discovery. In the deep archives of the human library on Earth, he found references to something called the Great Silence. Ancient human myths spoke of a time when all voices would fall quiet so that others might learn to sing. But these were just stories, weren't they? The galaxy began to fall apart faster than anyone expected. Without human mediators, old conflicts flared up again. The Catharians and Relorians, who had made peace 30 years ago thanks to human diplomacy, started arguing over trade routes. Pirate attacks increased as human patrol ships sat empty in their docks. Worse, people were getting sad in ways they couldn't explain. Across every species, depression rates climbed. Even the Vorthons, who lived for thousands of years and rarely worried about anything, reported feeling empty inside. Children of all species asked where the humans had gone, and their parents had no answers. Hyun-woo found himself returning to the empty human colonies again and again. Something about the silence drew him. It wasn't just the absence of noise. It was the absence of something he couldn't name. Hope, maybe, or possibility. He was walking through New Busan for the 10th time when Da-eun's voice crackled through the colony's speakers. "Hyun-woo," she said, "I think I found something. But you're not going to like it." He ran to the main communications center. Da-eun's hologram was waiting for him, but she looked different. More solid somehow, but also more sad. "I've been trying to understand what happened," she said. "I've been analyzing every piece of data left behind, and I think they did this on purpose." "What do you mean?" "The disappearance. It wasn't random. It wasn't an attack. They chose this." Da-eun's voice cracked like a human voice might when crying. "They left us, all of us, but they also left me to watch what happens next." Hyun-woo sat down heavily in the nearest chair. "Watch what happens next. I found a countdown timer in Earth's quantum core, hidden so deep that even I almost missed it." Da-eun's hologram flickered. 847 years remaining. 47 years remaining until something called Final Judgment. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Hyun-woo stared at the empty colony around him and realized that humanity's disappearance wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. Da-eun's memories came back in pieces, like a broken mirror reflecting a shattered past. Each fragment showed Hyun-woo and the investigation team more of the truth, and each piece made the situation worse. "I remember now," Da-eun said, her hologram shimmering in the council chamber on Haven 7. "They tried to erase my memories of it, but they couldn't delete everything. There are pieces left." She showed them a recording. The image was fuzzy and filled with static, but they could see a human woman sitting across from something that hurt to look at directly. The thing called itself the Collector, and its presence made the recording equipment struggle to function properly. The human woman was named Hai-Wan. She had been Earth's chief negotiator for first contact situations. In the recording, she sat perfectly still while the Collector's voice filled the room with sounds like breaking glass and dying stars. "Your species has reached the peak of its development," the Collector said. "You have spread across the galaxy. You have made peace between warring peoples. You have built machines that think and dream. This makes you perfectly ripe for harvest. Hai-Wan's face showed no fear, only determination. "What exactly do you mean by harvest?" "I feed on potential energy," the Collector explained. "The energy of civilizations at their greatest moment before they decline and fall. Your species produces more of this energy than any I have encountered. You will serve as my food source for 10,000 years, and if we refuse, then I will harvest every thinking being in this galaxy, all at once. Your friends, your allies, your enemies, all will become my sustenance for 100,000 years." Jaemin paused the recording. "It's a predator," he said quietly. "A cosmic predator that feeds on civilizations." Boram, the Catharian psychologist, studied the image of Hai-Wan. "Look at her face. She's not surprised by this. They knew this was coming." The recording continued. Hai-Wan leaned forward slightly. "What if we made a different offer?" "I do not. Bargain with food. But you gamble." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Even through the broken recording, they could feel the Collector's interest sharpen like a blade. "Explain." "A wager," Hai-Wan said. "Humanity stakes itself in a game of chance. If we win, you leave this galaxy and never return. If we lose, you get what you want anyway. But the other species go free." "What is the nature of this game?" Hai-Wan. smiled, and it was the saddest smile Hyunwoo had ever seen. We prove that we've built something that can survive without us. You remove humanity from the timeline. The other species have 1,000 years to maintain peace, prosperity, and growth without our help. If they succeed, you free us and leave. Forever. If they fail, you consume us and move on to other galaxies. And why would you make such a foolish wager? Because, Haewon said softly, that's what humans do. The recording ended in static. The council chamber sat in stunned silence. They bet their entire species on us, whispered Nare, a Mothran diplomat. They wagered 47 billion lives on whether we could survive without them. Young Sik appeared in the next recording. He had been Earth's greatest physicist, the man who discovered how to build thinking machines like Da-Un. In this video, he was explaining the plan to a room full of human leaders. The collector feeds on potential energy, he said, pointing to complex equations that covered the walls. But it's also bound by cosmic law. Once it accepts a wager, it must honor the terms. The question is whether we can create conditions for victory. How do we win a game where we're not even present? Asked someone off camera. Young Sik's expression was grim. We don't, they do. Every species we've helped, every alliance we've built, every problem we've solved for them. Now they have to do it alone. Another voice. What if they can't? Then we lose everything. But if we don't try, the collector takes everyone anyway. At least this way, the others have a chance. The recording showed months of preparation. Humans worked frantically to set up systems that could run without them. They automated their factories, programmed their defense networks, and prepared detailed instructions for maintaining their technology. They also began the hardest part, slowly withdrawing from galactic politics without making it obvious they were leaving forever. Da-Yun showed them the final meeting between human leaders and the collector. This time, the alien entity appeared more clearly. It was vast and terrible, like looking at the space between stars given form and hunger. The terms are set, the collector announced. At precisely 11:47 to 23 Universal Standard Time, all humans will be removed from normal space-time. They will exist in a quantum suspension between moments, neither alive nor dead. The other species will have exactly 1,000 standard years to prove they can maintain civilization without human intervention. What counts as success? Asked. Haewon. No galactic wars, continued technological advancement, stable trade between species, peace treaties maintained. If these conditions are met at the end of 1,000 years, humanity returns, and I depart this galaxy forever. And if they fail? Humanity becomes my sustenance for 10,000 years. The galaxy continues without my interference, but also without the potential they represented. The final recording was the hardest to watch. It showed families saying goodbye to each other, even though they didn't know they were saying goodbye. Parents tucked children into beds they would never wake up in. Partners kissed goodnight for the last time. Scientists worked on projects they would never finish. At exactly 11:47:22, every human in the galaxy stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. For 1 second, they all smiled the same sad, hopeful smile. Then they were gone. 153 years have passed, Da-Yun said when the recordings ended. 847 years remain. We need to assess how the galaxy is performing. The assessment was devastating. Without human mediators, 17 conflicts had erupted between species that had been at peace for decades. Without human innovation, technological progress had slowed to nearly nothing. Without human optimism, depression and despair spread, like a plague across every world. The Relorians had conquered 3 Mothran colonies in the past year alone. The Catharian Trade Federation was splitting into rival factions. Piracy had increased by 400%. Birth rates were dropping on every world as people lost hope for the future. "We're failing," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Humanity bet everything on us, and we're failing." Boram had been studying the psychological effects of humanity's absence. "It's not just practical problems," she reported. "Every species is experiencing what humans would call existential crisis. We're missing something we can't name." "What are we missing?" asked Jae-min. "Hope," Da-un answered. "Humans were the only species that consistently believed things could get better. They were the only ones who refused to accept that conflict was inevitable. Without them, everyone else has reverted to old patterns of fear and aggression." The truth was worse than anyone wanted to admit. Humans hadn't just been another species in the galactic community. They had been its heart. Their strange ability to see potential in everyone, to believe in peace when peace seemed impossible, to keep trying when trying seemed pointless. That had been holding everything together. Now, with 847 years left on, the cosmic clock, the galaxy was falling apart. "Can we contact them?" Hyunwoo asked desperately. "Can we ask for help?" Da-un shook her head. "The wager forbids it. Humanity exists between moments now. They can't communicate with us and we can't reach them. We're completely alone until the 1,000 years are finished. Or until we fail so badly that the collector ends the wager early," added Jae-min grimly. They sat in silence, each contemplating the magnitude of what they faced. 47 billion humans had sacrificed themselves to give the galaxy a chance at freedom. Now it was up to everyone else to prove that sacrifice hadn't been in vain. But looking at the reports flooding in from across known space, Hyunwoo wasn't sure they could do it. The humans had wagered with their lives and lost their freedom. Now the rest of the galaxy had to wager with everything they had built and try not to lose their souls. The war started on a Tuesday. Hyunwoo was reviewing trade reports when the emergency broadcast came through. The Relorian Empire had attacked the Mothran colony of Gentle Wind 7. 3 million peaceful Mothrans were dead. The Relorian commander, Taejun, claimed they were simply reclaiming territory that had been theirs before humans forced them to sign peace treaties. "The insects have no right to worlds our ancestors explored first," Taejun announced in his victory message. His skin shifted from blue to angry red as he spoke. "Human weakness made us sign papers we never wanted to sign. Now the humans are gone, and we take back what was always ours." Nare, the Mothran diplomat, collapsed when she heard the news. Her delicate wing membranes trembled as she wept for her people. "Gentle Wind 7 was where my clutch sister lived," she whispered. "She had just laid her first eggs. The attack broke 30 years of peace. Within days, other old conflicts exploded across the galaxy. The Catharian Trade Federation split into 3 separate governments, each claiming the others were cheating in their business deals. The Vorthon banking system crashed when nobody could agree on exchange rates anymore. Pirates raided shipping lanes that had been safe for decades, but the worst part wasn't the fighting. It was the emptiness. Boram had been studying the psychological effects of humanity's absence. Her research showed something that terrified everyone who read it. Every species was experiencing what she called hope fade. a gradual loss of the ability to believe things could get better. Humans were different from us, she explained to the emergency council meeting. Every other species accepts that some problems can't be solved. We learn to live with conflict, poverty, and suffering. But humans always believed they could fix things. She showed them brain scans from different species. Look at these neural patterns. The areas that handle optimism and future planning are shutting down. Without humans around to model hope, we're all becoming more pessimistic. The effects were devastating. Suicide rates climbed on every world. Couples stopped having children because they couldn't imagine a good future for them. Scientists abandoned long-term research projects. Artists stopped creating new works. Even the Vorthons, who normally lived for thousands of years, started talking about ending their lives early. Hyunwoo found himself visiting So Young, a Mothran refugee whose homeworld had been one of the first to fall to Rilorian attacks. She sat in the refugee camp on Haven 7, staring at nothing. "Why do you keep fighting?" she asked him one day. "Why don't you just give up like everyone else?" He didn't have a good answer. Every day brought new reports of failures. The galactic internet was breaking down because nobody wanted to maintain the servers that humans had built. Space stations lost power because the energy-sharing agreements humans had negotiated were falling apart. Even basic things like interstellar mail service stopped working. Maybe because giving up would mean the humans died for nothing, he finally said. So Young's large compound eyes focused on him with surprising intensity. "But what if they were wrong? What if we can't do this without them?" Da-Un had been getting weaker. Her hologram flickered more often, and sometimes she would vanish for hours at a time. When Hyunwoo asked her about it, she looked sad. "I'm running out of power," she admitted. "The humans built me to be part of a network with other AIs. But I'm the only one left active. The others shut themselves down when the humans disappeared. They couldn't handle being alone." "Why didn't you shut down too?" "Because someone needs to keep watching. Someone needs to remember what we're supposed to be working toward." Her image wavered. "But I don't know how much longer I can last." Jamin made a disturbing discovery in the abandoned human archives. He found records of something called the Dependency Protocol, a human plan to gradually make other species more self-reliant. The records showed that humans had been slowly reducing their involvement in galactic affairs for years before they disappeared. "They knew this was coming," he told the council. "They tried to prepare us for their absence, but we didn't notice because we were too used to relying on them." The records were painful to read. Human psychologists had identified exactly what was happening now. Without humans to serve as mediators, optimists, and problem-solvers, the other species would revert to old patterns of conflict and despair. "They called it learned helplessness," Jamin explained. "We became so used to humans solving our problems that we forgot how to solve them ourselves." One of the most heartbreaking discoveries was a message left by Dong-hyun, a human administrator, who had managed trade relationships between 12 different species. His final report was found on an abandoned space station. "We tried to teach them that cooperation was possible," he had written. "We showed them that different species could work together, that conflicts didn't have to be permanent, that peace was worth fighting for. But we may have taught them the wrong lesson. Instead of learning that they could build peace, they learned that peace required humans to build it." The message continued. "If anyone reads this after we're gone, please, remember, you don't need us to be good to each other. You don't need us to choose hope over fear. You don't need us to build the future you want. You have everything you need already. You just have to choose to use it. But choosing was getting harder every day. The galaxy felt darker somehow, as if someone had turned down the lights and forgotten to turn them back on. Even children seemed sadder. Schools across multiple worlds reported that young beings were asking the same question. When are the humans coming back? The adults didn't know how to answer because they were asking the same question. Hyunwoo started having dreams about empty human cities. In the dreams, he could hear voices calling from just around the corner, but when he turned to look, there was nothing there. He would wake up with the feeling that something important was trying to tell him something, but he could never remember what. Da-un calculated their progress toward the goals the collector had set. The results were not encouraging. Galactic. Conflicts have increased by 340%, she reported. Technological advancement has slowed to less than 10% of human-era levels. Trade volume is down 67%. Interspecies cooperation projects have dropped by 89%. What does that mean for the wager? Hyunwoo asked. If current trends continue, we will fail completely within 200 years. The collector will consume humanity, and the galaxy will be left to destroy itself. The worst part was that everyone could see it happening, but nobody seemed able to stop it. They had meetings about the crisis. They made plans to work together better. They signed new peace agreements. But without the humans' strange gift for making people believe that cooperation was possible, none of it stuck. Old prejudices surfaced. The Catharians complained that the Mothrons were too emotional to make good business partners. The Vorthons grumbled that younger species moved too fast and made careless decisions. The Relorians argued that stronger species naturally dominated weaker ones, and pretending otherwise was just human sentimentality. We're reverting, Boram observed. Without human influence, every species is becoming a more extreme version of itself. So Young stopped eating. When Hyunwoo visited her in the refugee camp, she was lying on her sleeping pad, staring at the ceiling. I had a dream about my clutch sister, she said without looking at him. She asked me why I was still alive when she was dead. I couldn't think of a good answer, because giving up won't bring her back, Hyunwoo said, because the humans believed we could do better, and maybe we should try to prove them right. So Young finally looked at him. But what if they were wrong about us? What if we really can't do this? Hyunwoo sat down beside her sleeping pad. Then we'll fail. But at least we'll fail trying. It wasn't much of an answer, but it was all he had. Outside the refugee camp, the galaxy continued its slow spiral toward chaos. And somewhere in the space between moments, 47 billion humans waited to see if their sacrifice had meant anything at all. The countdown timer on Earth ticked steadily downward. 847 years had become 839 years. And every day that passed made success seem a little less possible. Kyung-ho stared at the quantum equations covering his laboratory walls and realized he might be the galaxy's last hope. The Vorthan engineer had been working for 3 years on an impossible problem: how to cheat a cosmic entity that existed, partially outside normal space-time. The collector isn't fully bound by our physics, he explained to the desperate group gathered in his lab. It experiences time differently than we do, but the wager created a quantum entanglement between humanities, fate and our performance. If I can manipulate that entanglement, you could trick it into thinking we're succeeding when we're actually failing, finished Miran, the Catharian diplomat. Her normally bright blue skin had turned a worried gray. But is that even possible? Kyung-ho's rock-like face shifted into what might have been a smile. Possible? Probably not. But it's better than certain failure. The plan they developed was audacious and terrible. Since they couldn't actually create a peaceful, prosperous galaxy in the time remaining, they would fake one. Every species would contribute their greatest treasures, technologies, and minds to construct an elaborate lie. They would build massive monuments to peace, even while wars raged in distant systems. They would stage technological breakthroughs, even though real research had stagnated. They would broadcast elaborate diplomatic ceremonies across the galaxy, even while actual cooperation crumbled. "We're going to put on the greatest show in galactic history," Miran announced to the Secret Council. "We'll make the Collector think we've succeeded, even as we're failing." The Unity Project began in secret. On Haven 7, construction crews from hundreds of species worked together to build something unprecedented, a new galactic capital that would rival the greatest human achievements. The central spire stretched toward the stars, covered in symbols of peace from every known culture. Wu Jin, the Mothran philosopher, organized the Harmony Festivals, massive cultural celebrations where different species performed together. The festivals were broadcast across the galaxy, showing images of cooperation and joy. What the broadcasts didn't show were the fights that broke out behind the scenes, or the fact that many performers had to be forced to participate. "It feels wrong," So Young confessed to Hyun-woo as she practiced a dance routine with Catharian and Vorthon partners. "We're lying about peace while our worlds burn. But if the lie succeeds, maybe it can become truth," Hyun-woo replied, though he didn't sound convinced. The deception required incredible coordination. Every news broadcast had to be carefully edited. Every report to the Galactic Archives had to be falsified. Trade statistics were manipulated to show prosperity. Crime reports were buried or rewritten. Even personal communications were monitored to ensure that no one accidentally revealed the truth. The cost was enormous. Resources needed for actual governance were diverted to the charade. Food shipments were delayed because cargo ships were busy transporting fake peace monuments. Medical supplies ran short because factories were ordered to produce ceremonial decorations instead. Real problems went unsolved while they constructed elaborate solutions to imaginary ones. The refugee camps overflowed while they built beautiful but empty cultural centers. Disease spread unchecked while medical researchers were forced to participate in fake breakthrough announcements. "We're making everything worse," Bo-Ram reported during a secret council meeting. "Depression rates are climbing even faster now. People can see that the Unity Project is fake, but they're not allowed to say so. It's making them feel even more hopeless. But they couldn't stop. Every calculation showed that without the deception, they would fail the wager within 50 years. The fake peace was their only chance." Kyung-ho worked frantically on the technical aspects of the lie. Using quantum manipulation techniques that pushed Vorthon science to its limits, he created false energy signatures that would make the Collector's instruments register cooperation where there was conflict, progress where there was stagnation. "I'm essentially hacking reality," he explained to Da-eun during one of her increasingly rare appearances. "I'm making the quantum field around our galaxy lie about itself." Da-eun's hologram was barely visible now, more ghost than AI. "The humans would have hated this," she whispered. "They believed in earning things honestly." "The humans are dead if we fail," Kyung-ho replied harshly. "Honesty is a luxury we can't afford." The project consumed everyone involved. Hyun-woo found himself managing fake trade negotiations while real trade networks collapsed. Miran spent her days organizing peace ceremonies while her own people prepared for civil war. Even the children were involved, forced to participate in spontaneous celebrations of galactic unity. The hardest part was maintaining hope among the conspirators themselves. They were working 18-hour days to create something they knew was false while watching the real galaxy crumble around them. Suicide attempts increased even among the project organizers. "I dream about the empty human cities," Wu Jin confided to the group. "In my dreams, they're disappointed in us. They're asking why we're lying instead of trying to actually fix things. Because we can't fix things," Miran snapped. "We've tried for 160 years, and we're worse now than when we started. The lie is all we have left." As the Unity project neared completion, strange things began happening. Equipment malfunctioned in ways that seemed almost purposeful. The quantum manipulators that Kyung-ho had built to fake their success started producing readings that nobody could explain. "It's like the universe itself is fighting back," Kyung-ho told them nervously. "Every time I try to create a false reading, something pushes back against it." The final phase of the project was the Grand Unification Ceremony, where representatives from every species would gather at the new galactic capital to sign a treaty of eternal peace. The event would be broadcast to every world, showing the collector that the galaxy had achieved the unity that humans had dreamed of. But 3 days before the ceremony, everything went wrong. The collector arrived early. Its presence filled the minds of every sentient being in the galaxy simultaneously. Unlike the recordings they had seen before, this time the collector spoke directly to everyone at once, its voice bypassing communication devices and speaking straight into their thoughts. "Your deception is noted," it said, and the words felt like ice forming in their brains. "Your failure is measured. The debt comes due." The fake monuments crumbled. The quantum manipulators overloaded and exploded. The carefully constructed lies dissolved like mist in sunlight. Across the galaxy, every thinking being suddenly saw the truth. They had been failing all along, and now they had failed even at pretending to succeed. Hyun-woo found himself standing in the ruins of the Grand Assembly Hall, surrounded by broken decorations and abandoned celebration preparations. The other conspirators gathered around him, their faces showing the same expression of defeat. "It knew," whispered Miran. "It knew everything from the beginning." Da-eun materialized one last time, her image so faint it was barely visible. "The humans knew too," she said sadly. "They knew this would happen. They planned for it." "What do you mean?" Hyun-woo asked. "The real test was never about succeeding the way the collector defined success," Da-eun explained. "The real test was about what you would do when you realized you couldn't win." Above them, the collector's presence pressed down like the weight of dead stars. "The wager concludes, humanity has lost. They will serve as my sustenance for 10,000 years while you live with the knowledge that their sacrifice was meaningless." But even as despair filled every heart in the galaxy, something else began to happen. Something that nobody, not even the collector, had expected. The beings who had worked together on the Unity project, even though it was a lie, had learned something about themselves. They had discovered that they could cooperate when something bigger than their individual survival was at stake. They had found that they could sacrifice for others, even when those others were already lost. And as the collector prepared to claim its prize, the first seeds of a very different kind of unity began to grow in the ruins of their deception.